Hello, this is Dr. Kramer with this short video lecture on something called close reading. This is an essential part of a literary analysis paper. It's also essential for rhetorical analysis, which in composition class we'll be doing later on in the semester. Okay, so what is a close reading? Well, first off, you have to actually read. So I have a poem here. It's Anglo-Saxon riddle. It was written over 1,000 years ago, around 975. It's from something called the Exeter Book, which we don't know the author, so we say anonymous. But the first thing I'm going to do is read and not really worry about analyzing it too heavily. So let me read it for you. My beak points downward, and I travel low, and dig along the ground, move forward as the wood's old foe propels me, and my lord and guardian walks stooping at my tail, pushes and moves and drives me on the field. So's in my track. I sniff along the ground, brought from the forest, finally bound and borne upon the wagon. I have many wonders. And as I move on one side, there is green, and my clear track is dark upon the other. A well-made point is driven through my back, and hangs beneath, and through my head another. Firm, pointing forwards, what my teeth tear up falls down beside me. If he serves me well, who, as my lord, controls me from behind. Okay, so that's step one, read. So I've read this. This is about the length, it's about, I think about 15 lines long, about the length of a good portion for poetry close reading. It's possible to close read something in prose as well, of course. Now I need to read it a little bit more slowly. I'm going to be reading line by line now and really taking my time and annotating. So I'm going to annotate here on this whiteboard, but you will probably want to either print out or write in a book or do some kind of digital annotation as you read. Don't trust yourself to just remember things. Okay, in the handout that you have linked on Canvas, it talks about several things to consider as you close read. One of the most important is audience and purpose. So this was written over 1,000 years ago, so I'm not sure who the original audience was, but I'm just saying probably general population because it is a poem. And the purpose, well, the purpose of this is a riddle. So you probably will not be close reading a riddle, but a riddle in this sense is there's a mystery here that I need to solve. So this poem is describing something. I'll go ahead and tell you what it is, just so we remove that mystery and you're not kind of hung up on thinking what it is. This is talking about a plow. The farmer is the lord and master, and you can kind of tell. This is a very old-fashioned plow, not a modern farming plow, of which I know very little. So that'll be the limit of my agricultural explanations on modern farming. Okay, so I know it's a riddle, so now I kind of know it's mysterious on purpose, and it's hiding some meaning from me, and so that helps me read and helps me analyze. I need to think about the point of view. So if you can remember back into junior high or high school, you may have had a lesson about first person or second person or third person, and so that's always something to take into account. Who is speaking in the work of literature? I know right away it's first person because it says my. So it's first person, but whose point of view is it from? My beak points downward and I travel low. So this riddle is actually from the point of view of the plow itself. So even from the very first line of this poem, I'm already learning some things about the meaning just by looking at the language. So I've got first person here. And I'm going to abbreviate point of view as POV. So I don't have very much room on this whiteboard. Okay. Now I'm going to move forward just like the plow is and look to see if there's any imagery or symbols. So are there comparisons being made or kind of pictures that the writer is pulling up into my mind as I read? My beak. Who usually has a beak? usually a bird, right? Or an animal of some sort. My beak points downward and I travel low. Okay, so again, this is a riddle and I already kind of solved the riddle. I already knew it ahead of time. But if you were looking at a brand new riddle, you would probably need to solve it first before you really delved into the close reading. But you see that a plow, that's an inanimate object, right? But this one is being described as having kind of its own power. So it has a beak like an animal. It can travel low, also maybe like an animal. I dig along the ground. So already I'm thinking of animals that are kind of maybe burrowing animals. I can see its little nose sniffing maybe. Move forward as the wood's old foe propels me. Now I'm just going to go in a different color here because this is talking about the other kind of character in this riddle, which would be the person pushing the plow, the farmer, right? And the poet here is describing the farmer as the wood's old foe. So I might want to pause here and just think. And again, I'm not an expert on ancient farming, but I'm thinking just from my general knowledge that in order to have a field, I need to clear stuff out of it. So maybe I'm the foe as the farmer of the woods or the forest because I have chopped down some trees to clear enough space for my field, my farming field. So you kind of see in the fact that there's a foe here, there's kind of a tension here. An antagonist, the farmer, and a protagonist, which maybe is nature, okay? And so that's another thing you want to think about as you read, or is there a conflict? And here we kind of have a conflict. The wood's old foe propels me, and my lord and guardian. So the farmer is described as a lord and guardian, someone who's ruling over the plow, but also protecting it. But this lord and guardian is stooping. Look at this, right? Because he's plowing the field. We don't usually think of someone in a position of power as someone who needs to stoop. So that's very interesting here. And this is kind of like a contradiction, which is another kind of thing you want to look for when you're reading. If you see a contradiction or something that's inconsistent. Pushes and moves and drives me on the field. These are things, pushing and moving, that I can do to an inanimate object, and driving too, but there's also driving in the sense of driving an animal, driving a cow, driving a horse, making it move. So this plow kind of has some kind of agency or ability to move too. Sows in my track, it kind of gives it away there. So he's sowing seeds. I sniff along the ground. Again, I'm back to that animal imagery. So that's very interesting. Brought from the forest, firmly bound and borne. So just some things to note here. Now, if you are in world literature, you are likely reading a poem in translation. And so you have to be careful with some of the literary devices because they may not have been in the original. However, this poem was written in English, and that was Old English. And something that Old English loved to do, and this is a translation by the way, is use alliteration. So the repetition of consonant sounds. So I see in this line a repetition of B's, but also a repetition of F's. So that's something just to think about. Why did the writer do that? Brought from the forest, back to the plow. So the plow used to be part of nature. It was captured and turned into a plow. So we have back to that fighting there between the farmer and nature. And borne upon the wagon. I have many wonders. So it sounds like the plow, even though it's kind of saying it used to be in the nature and used to be happy maybe, but it's also kind of proud of the things it can do. And as I move, on one side there is green, nature, and my clear track is dark upon the other. So he's turning up the ground, but he's making it dark and ready for seeds. A well-made point is driven through my back. ouch, right? Again, we have more personification where this plow is able to feel and is kind of acting like an animal here, and hangs beneath, and through my head another. So the plow has a back and a head. Firm, pointing forwards, what my teeth tear up. So again, another body part here. Falls down beside me. And now I'm back to the farmer. If he serves me well, who as my Lord controls me from behind. So back to this contradiction. Usually we don't think of the master serving the servant, but here the master is serving the servant. If the master, the farmer, plows well, he'll have a nicely mown field or a nicely turned over field. Okay. Now, there's lots more here that we could do, but we have a limited time here on this video. What I would next do after I kind of marked up is I would start to look at things that really intrigued me, and this is going to be very personal. What's intriguing me this morning as I'm presenting this video is this contradiction between something that is, between the plow, which has agency of sorts, it's compared to an animal, and it's served by its master. And so I would probably think through what that means. In another lecture, we'll talk about making a thesis from your observations. But for now, for close reading, you want to take the section that you have determined to look at and just go through very slowly, think some things up. If you need to look something up, if you need to look up the definition of a word, that's fine. What I want to caution you against, though, is going and researching the meaning on the internet or somewhere else, because as long as you are grounded in what the words actually say, your observations are legitimate. All right, that's it for this time. We'll see you next time.